Hello and welcome to today's video on nuclear power and human health, separating fact from fiction. There are many misconceptions and fears surrounding nuclear power and its effects on human health. In this video, we will address some of these concerns and provide you with accurate information on the topic.
Before me dropping value bombs of this video, I would like to introduce the Nuclear Power Engineering Principles course, now available on Udemy. This comprehensive course is your ticket to mastering the principles of nuclear power engineering and taking your career to new heights. Packed with engaging lectures, this course is designed to provide you with a deep understanding of nuclear power engineering principles. And the best part? Upon completing the course, you will receive a prestigious certificate of completion to showcase your newly acquired skills and knowledge. It is a valuable credential that can open doors to exciting career opportunities in the nuclear power industry. Don't miss out on this incredible opportunity to unlock your potential with Nuclear Power Engineering Principles course. Enroll now and gain access to this top-rated course at an unbeatable price. But hurry, as this offer won't last long. Join us today and take the first step towards a successful career in nuclear power engineering. Enroll now in the Nuclear Power Engineering Principles course on Udemy and unlock your potential. Don't wait and start your learning journey now. Now, if you're interested, the link to this course is provided in the video description below.
Nuclear power has been a topic of debate for many years, with concerns about its safety and potential impact on human health being a major point of discussion. Nuclear power plants generate electricity by using nuclear reactions to heat water and produce steam, which then drives a turbine to generate electricity. This process produces no greenhouse gas emissions, making nuclear power an attractive option for addressing climate change. However, there are concerns about the safety of nuclear power plants, particularly in the event of accidents or incidents that could release radioactive materials into the environment. The impact of nuclear power on human health has been a major concern since the development of nuclear technology, particularly after high-profile incidents such as the Chernobyl and Fukushima disasters. These incidents have led to concerns about the long-term health effects of exposure to radiation, as well as the potential for radiation to cause cancer and other diseases. Despite these concerns, many experts argue that nuclear power can be a safe and effective source of energy, as long as appropriate safety measures are in place and monitored rigorously. In this podcast, we will explore the impact of nuclear power on human health and separate fact from fiction when it comes to the risks associated with nuclear power. Radiation is energy that is emitted in the form of particles or waves. There are two main types of radiation, ionizing and non-ionizing. Non-ionizing radiation is not strong enough to break apart atoms or molecules, so it doesn't pose a significant risk to human health. Examples of non-ionizing radiation include visible light, radio waves, and microwaves. Ionizing radiation, on the other hand, is powerful enough to break apart atoms or molecules and can cause damage to living cells. It can come in several forms, including alpha particles, beta particles, gamma rays, and X-rays. Alpha particles are the least penetrating type of ionizing radiation, and they can be blocked by a sheet of paper or the outer layer of skin. However, they can be dangerous if they are ingested or inhaled. Beta particles can penetrate the skin and cause burns or other damage to the body. They can be blocked by clothing or a thin sheet of metal. Gamma rays and X-rays are the most penetrating types of ionizing radiation, and they can pass through the body and damage cells deep inside. They can be blocked by thick layers of concrete or lead. Radiation is measured in units of becquerels or sieverts. A becquerel is a unit of measure for the amount of radioactive material present, while a sievert is a measure of the biological effects of radiation on human tissue. It's important to note that everyone is exposed to some level of radiation in their daily lives. The sources of natural background radiation include cosmic rays from space, radon gas, and naturally occurring radioactive materials in the soil and rocks. Humans are also exposed to radiation from man-made sources, such as medical imaging procedures, nuclear power plants, and industrial processes. While exposure to high levels of radiation can be harmful to human health, it's important to remember that not all radiation is dangerous. In fact, radiation is used in many beneficial applications, such as medical imaging and cancer treatments. It's the responsibility of radiation workers and regulatory agencies to ensure that the risks associated with radiation exposure are minimized and that safety measures are in place to protect workers and the public. Radiation can come from both natural and man-made sources. For natural sources of radiation, we have cosmic radiation, terrestrial radiation, and radon. Cosmic radiation comes from space and is present on Earth's surface. It is a form of ionizing radiation that penetrates the atmosphere and can expose humans to low levels of radiation. The Earth's crust contains radioactive elements such as uranium, thorium, and potassium-40. These elements emit radiation that can be absorbed by humans through the air, water, and food we consume. Lastly, radon is a naturally occurring radioactive gas that is formed by the decay of uranium in soil and rocks. It can seep into buildings and accumulate, potentially exposing individuals to higher levels of radiation. As for man-made sources of radiation, we have medical procedures, nuclear power plants, and industrial sources. Medical procedures that use radiation, such as X-rays, CT scans, and radiation therapy, can expose patients to ionizing radiation. Nuclear power plants generate electricity by splitting atoms in a process called nuclear fission. This process produces radioactive waste, and there is a small risk of accidents that could lead to radiation exposure. Some industries, such as mining and nuclear fuel processing, can produce radioactive materials that can be released into the environment and potentially expose workers or nearby communities. It is important to note that while radiation can be harmful, the dose and duration of exposure play a significant role in the level of risk. Natural background radiation is present all around us and is generally not harmful in small doses. Man-made sources of radiation are typically tightly regulated to minimize the risk of exposure to workers and the public. Radiation exposure can have both short-term and long-term health effects on the human body. The severity of these effects depends on a number of factors, including the type and amount of radiation exposure, the duration of exposure, and the age and health of the individual. Short-term effects of radiation exposure can include skin burns, radiation sickness, and increased risk of infection due to damage to the immune system. Symptoms of radiation sickness can include nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, and fatigue. In severe cases, radiation sickness can lead to death. Long-term effects of radiation exposure can include an increased risk of cancer and genetic damage. Ionizing radiation can damage DNA in cells, which can lead to mutations and potentially cancerous growths. Children and fetuses are particularly vulnerable to the long-term effects of radiation exposure, as their cells are still developing. It's important to note that the level of radiation exposure necessary to cause health effects varies depending on the individual and the type of radiation. Some people may be more susceptible to radiation damage due to genetics or other factors. Overall, the health effects of radiation exposure are a complex and ongoing area of study in the field of nuclear energy. While radiation can have negative health effects, modern nuclear power plants are designed with a variety of safety measures to minimize the risk of radiation exposure to workers and the public. Nuclear power plants generate electricity by using nuclear reactions to heat water, which in turn produces steam to drive turbines. This process does produce some radioactive materials, but the amount of radiation released into the environment is carefully monitored and controlled. Studies have shown that living near a nuclear power plant does not increase the risk of cancer or other diseases. In fact, the radiation dose from living near a nuclear power plant is typically less than the dose received from natural background radiation. This is because the safety standards for nuclear power plants are very strict, and the plants are designed and operated to minimize the release of radioactive materials into the environment. However, nuclear accidents, such as the Chernobyl disaster in 1986 and the Fukushima Daiichi disaster in 2011, have raised concerns about the health effects of nuclear power. The long-term health effects of these accidents are still being studied, but it is important to note that they were the result of specific, preventable failures in safety and not an inherent flaw in nuclear power technology. It is also important to note that exposure to radiation is not always harmful. In fact, small amounts of radiation are a natural part of our environment and our bodies are capable of repairing damage from low-level radiation exposure. Radiation exposure becomes harmful when it is at high levels or for extended periods of time. In order to minimize the risk of harmful radiation exposure, nuclear power plants must adhere to strict safety standards and regulations. This includes regular monitoring of radiation levels in and around the plant, emergency preparedness plans, and training for plant personnel on how to respond to potential incidents. Overall, while there are risks associated with nuclear power, the industry is heavily regulated and monitored to ensure the safety of both workers and the general public. The health risks of living near a nuclear power plant are minimal, and nuclear power can play an important role in reducing greenhouse gas emissions and combating climate change. There are several myths and misconceptions surrounding nuclear power and human health. Here are a few of the most common ones. The first myth is nuclear power plants are ticking time bombs waiting to explode. This is a common myth that stems from the fear and uncertainty associated with nuclear disasters such as Chernobyl and Fukushima. However, it's important to note that these incidents were the result of human error and poor safety practices, not an inherent flaw in nuclear technology itself. Nuclear power plants are designed with numerous safety systems and redundant features to prevent accidents from occurring. The second myth is nuclear power plants emit dangerous levels of radiation. While it's true that nuclear power plants release small amounts of radiation into the environment, the levels are carefully monitored and regulated to ensure they do not pose a significant threat to human health. In fact, the amount of radiation emitted by a nuclear power plant is typically less than that produced by a coal-fired power plant. The third myth is living near a nuclear power plant is dangerous. Studies have shown that living near a nuclear power plant does not increase the risk of cancer or other health problems. In fact, the radiation exposure from living near a nuclear power plant is typically less than the exposure from natural background radiation. The fourth myth is nuclear waste is a major health hazard. While nuclear waste is certainly a concern, it is not an immediate threat to human health. Nuclear waste is carefully stored and monitored to prevent it from leaking into the environment, and there have been no reported cases of radiation-related health problems resulting from exposure to nuclear waste. And the fifth myth is nuclear power is not a sustainable source of energy. This is a misconception that arises from the fact that nuclear fuel is a finite resource. However, there are a number of strategies being developed to extend the lifespan of existing nuclear fuel, as well as alternative fuel sources such as thorium that could potentially provide a more sustainable source of nuclear energy in the future. It's important to remember that while there are risks associated with nuclear power, these risks can be minimized through careful planning, rigorous safety measures, and ongoing research and development. By separating fact from fiction, we can have a more informed and productive conversation about the role of nuclear power in our energy future. Regulatory oversight is a crucial component of ensuring the safe operation of nuclear power plants and protecting human health. In most countries with nuclear power plants, there are government regulatory bodies responsible for overseeing the safety and security of these facilities. Regulatory oversight typically involves a range of activities, including conducting inspections, reviewing safety reports and license applications, assessing safety culture, and enforcing safety regulations. Regulatory agencies also work closely with nuclear power plant operators to ensure they are adhering to safety standards and best practices. In the United States, for example, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, NRC, is responsible for overseeing the safety and security of nuclear power plants. The NRC employs a team of trained inspectors who conduct regular inspections of nuclear power plants to ensure compliance with safety regulations. The NRC also requires nuclear power plant operators to submit safety reports and license applications for review. Other countries have similar regulatory bodies, such as the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission and the European Nuclear Safety Regulators Group. These regulatory bodies work to ensure that nuclear power plants operate safely and do not pose a threat to human health or the environment. In addition to government regulatory bodies, there are also international organizations that play a role in overseeing nuclear safety. The International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, is an intergovernmental organization that works to promote safe and peaceful uses of nuclear energy worldwide. The IAEA provides guidance and support to member countries on nuclear safety issues and works to develop international safety standards and best practices. Overall, regulatory oversight is a critical component of ensuring the safe operation of nuclear power plants and protecting human health. By working closely with nuclear power plant operators, conducting regular inspections, and enforcing safety regulations, regulatory bodies help to minimize the risk of accidents and ensure the continued safe use of nuclear energy. In conclusion, nuclear power is a safe and reliable source of electricity with low health risks compared to other sources of electricity generation. While accidents and incidents can occur, the industry has implemented numerous safety measures to prevent and mitigate the effects of these events. It's important to separate fact from fiction when it comes to nuclear power and human health, and to rely on accurate and reliable sources of information. If you're enjoying learning about the exciting world of engineering on our channel, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. It really helps us out, and you won't want to miss any of our upcoming videos.